Yeah, welcome to Theology and the Streets podcast, where no topic goes untouched. Coming to you live from HCF Studios. And I have with me in studio to my right.
Yo, what up, Big Jim, a juggernaut with my brothers? How y'all doing?
Yeah, and I got my boy to my left.
What's going on? It's Isaiah, a.k.a. Big Zeke.
Yeah, right next to me.
It's your boy Dave in the Cut Jones.
And we got live via Bluetooth. We got my boy coming in. Holla at us.
One and only, your boy, the host with the most, the man with the flavor, the biblical icon. Oh, my bad. Nah, this is your boy Don Dada. What's up, everybody? How y'all doing?
What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? We drop episodes, guys, every week. Every week on Anchor FM, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Tats Podcast, baby. All right, so we got a good one today.
Hold up, man. Hold on. Let's slow this down a little bit. My man said, I got to my right, and my man jumped off. Where your right hand at, man?
Yo, I was gonna let that slide.
Where your right? And then you said to my left, and my man, the new guy caught on and was like, "Let me go on here, man."
Yo, D, you on point. You too on point today.
Hey,
you caught the blooper in the beginning.
Listen, bro, I'm gonna tell you why. Y'all want to know why? My wife got me taking these what's the vitamins, man? What are they called? The one a day?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Those are awesome.
My sensories are on point, dog. I done dropped 8 pounds and my sensories are on point. So I just had to get at y'all about that, man.
One day I gotta check that out. Check that out.
That's crazy.
Y'all bear with me, man. You know, I'm used to sitting
He said to my right, and I was like, I'm on the right. I thought you meant politically. That's me.
That's exactly what happened right there.
And I forgot to introduce myself. I'm your boy Kirk Classic in the building.
There you go, man. Get it cracking, man.
There you go.
They don't know what's up, man.
Hey, this is what we do.
Self-explanatory.
Yeah, it is. It's all good. But we got a good one today, man. Good one today. I've been looking forward to getting into this topic for a minute. I first brought this to Lou a couple of weeks ago. And then I'm pretty sure we're going to get into some other stuff that surrounds it. So basically, let me set the stage, and then I'm going to let you brothers dive in. Mm-hmm. So what we're going to deal with today is this. About 15 years ago, at least from what I've observed, starting about 15 years ago up until probably about last year, there was this great migration from people of color, mainly Black and Latino, leaving their houses of worship that were predominantly Black and Latino and migrating over to a predominantly white house of worship, okay? And then along with that, what I noticed is not only would they migrate over, but then it would become a strong disgust and disdain, if you will, towards anything Black or Latino as far as Christian culture, if you can even say something like that.
They would turn into Oreo cookies.
You got to explain that one.
Oreos. You know.
Yeah.
The Oreos, the person that everyone says, oh, he Black, but he act too white, and he's so white.
Oh, okay.
They call those Oreos, right?
Yeah.
Back in the days.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, man. What is it to act white?
Exactly. I hate.
I've always wondered.
I can't stand it.
What is it to act white? To speak like you have
speak properly,
some freaking sense, and like your parents raised you the right way.
Over pronunciate your R's. Like I do.
I call that being
but that's a good one. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I've had that a lot from my inner city family members.
I had it too, bro.
They be like, "Yo, why you act so white, man? Why?" They be like, "Yo, look at him. Why he talking all white? Look at him."
Yeah.
I be like, "Damn."
I had the opposite. They be like, "Why he act so Black?"
Oh, you did?
And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, what does that? What is acting Black? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Uh-huh. So Don, hit us. What you think about that statement?
When they told me that, first time I was told that, I was in middle school. I was in middle school. I was in 6th grade, and I remember Stefan. His name was Stefan. Kid was one of the toughest kids. in the school. Forget in my class. He was one of the toughest kids in the school. I mean, he would fight you in a heartbeat, and he was tough. He had hands. The kid was real tough. And I always knew if I ever, me and him ever cross paths, I might have to take an L on Stefan, because the kid was advanced. I'm gonna tell you right now, the kid was advanced. You know what I mean? So, but one day I'm in class, and he told me, he was in class. He said, "Yo, man, why you act black? Why you act so black?" He told me that, and then I responded emotionally, because I was I was insulted that he didn't see me the same way as he saw himself. That's what it kind of hurt me, because
So
Stefan
was black.
Yeah, Stefan was black.
Okay.
Stefan was a black kid, and I'm sorry for that. Yeah, Stefan was a black kid. So he was tough, and he was a tough black kid. I'm telling you, man, this kid was terrible, and he was like, one day he asked me, he was like, "Yo, why you act black?" And I was offended, because I had it was predominantly all black kids in my school, but at the same time the other kids, it was all one. We was all one. You know what I mean? They never segregated me. They never excluded me out. So this was the first time I felt like excluded, or the first time I felt like, that he sees me different.
Yeah.
And I had told him, when he said that, I said, listen, I said, bro, I said, where you from? I said, where you from? He was like, Hudson, right? And I'm like, I live on Hudson. I said, bro, what you watch, what you listen, what you do, I do the same thing, bro. I don't act black. I act like myself. I told him just like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm from the same hood as from you. We go to the same school. We listen to the same music. You ain't no different than I. I told him just like that. Now, I thought it was going to be something. I thought it was going to be, but he didn't, you know what? He didn't say anything. He stood quiet when I said that to him. He stood quiet. So I didn't understand it from back then. I didn't understand again, I was just a product of my environment. So I didn't understand the term.
That's right.
I was just a product of my environment. I didn't understand why he's, I'm like, what you mean? I didn't understand what he was saying. Like how I act regular. To me, it was just acting regular. I was acting like everybody else act in the hood.
Yeah. So is it why do you think it's perceived if that when a black person leaves, let's say a predominantly black church and goes to a white church, what would be the reason someone would say they're acting white?
I would say because of which would be wrong. I say the perception is all wrong. I think that people, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, I think they view a ghetto mentality with minorities. Like all minorities have to have a ghetto type of attitude or mentality.
So that's
what I mean?
So
Which
that's
is not the
even
case.
applied to the churches.
I think so. If it's not done the way it's done, like in the hood per se,
yeah,
it's classified. Oh, you're doing things the white way. I don't know. That's my perception. What you guys think?
What you think?
I think that it's an economic thing, man. If you're born in the hood, like we all were, right? But I was the exception. I was a nerdy kid in the hood.
Yeah.
I could fight though. You know what I'm saying? But they used to make fun of me all the time the way I talked. I always used proper English. I was always reading. I remember one time, Bully and Mook and my man Noli, and this when I first started chilling with Dawn and them. And I was like 14 years old. I was a freshman at Wilson Magnet, and they came to my house on Wilkins. And me and Mook was the only Puerto Ricans on Wilkins. So we had to pay our dues when we first moved there, you know? And then we just got cool, because you know how it is, you know? You lose a couple, you win a couple, and then we all friends. We chilling. And then, so they came to my house with a whole bunch of bikes. And you know, that's when I started, puffing marijuana and drinking a little bit. But I was doing it on the low every now and then, you know? Because my dad was still in the house with my mom. They were still together. So they would come over, and Bully was like, yo, come outside. It was like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
like a Thursday or something. And it's like, yo, come on, man, get your bike. We about to go ride, start some trouble, do graffiti, tag up on the walls and stuff like that, puff a couple. And I was like, damn, fellas, I never forget this. I was at the window. I was like, fellas, turn, I can't. I got a chemistry test tomorrow. I've been studying all week. I'm about to ace this, dude. No, it wasn't chemistry. It was earth science. It was earth science. And they all looked at each other like, what is this dude saying? Because they was all G'd out. They all had dropped out of school. They was some gangster old 15, 16-year-old robbing people, stealing cars, had a little hustle. I was this little 14-year-old nerdy gangster kid. And they looked at each other like, and they looked at Bully and Mook, because that was my man's. They looked at Bully and Mook like, yo, who is this kid? Who is this kid, son?
Yeah.
So I was a nerdy dude. And they looked at me in the same way, like, why are we with you, man? You're not like us. You know what I'm saying? Like,
So why do you say it's economic though?
When like I got out of the ghetto, right? And started living in the burbs, I kind of fell into that category where I kind of shunned people who didn't speak properly. I hated it. And I did it to my nieces and my nephews. When I moved out there and I got into the workforce, and you know how you have to be in the workforce to move up the ladder. And I used to get angry at my nephews and my nieces and my son. You could ask him. I used to always correct him, like, yo, don't talk like that.
Yeah.
With the like, yo, word, son, you know what I'm saying? What's popping? I was like, yo, why are you talking like that? You're not in the hood anymore. And we're in the burbs now, and speaking like that, you're not going to get ahead in life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I kind of felt guilty. I fell victim to that, where once my economic circumstances changed, I felt I had to do that dance where I was like, yo, I want to stay here and I want my children to get to this spot or pass me. So I don't want you speaking like this or dressing like that, as far as lingo and behavior. But I think you're referring to worship, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why they would shun that. You know what I'm saying?
What you think, Zeke?
Yeah, me too. That's tough.
Honestly, if somebody would have came to me and asked me why I was going to a predominantly black or predominantly white church, I would ask them probably, like, why does there have to be a black church and a white church if the bottom line is Christ and Him crucified? Because growing up, I was in a small family church, all black, until circumstances forced us to join churches with a white church up the street, like all white Methodist.
Yeah.
Probably never voluntarily interacted with a black person before in their life type of church.
Yeah.
And a beautiful thing grew from that situation where we developed friendships and some people who I would consider family. So coming back to before I came to Hope, I was at a black church. And I mean, I honestly don't understand why there has to be a separation. If we all say we're Christians, if we all say we read the same Bible and believe the same things, why can't we commingle with followers and believers of other shades and backgrounds? There shouldn't be that strife where I feel uncomfortable walking into a white church or white people feel uncomfortable walking into a black church. We should feel welcome wherever we go if the message is being preached, Christ and Him crucified. That should be the bottom line.
Amen.
Black, white, it don't matter. His blood was red and it was shed for us. So
Amen.
that's the only color that matters.
Yeah. You also got to.
And let me say, the Hope is the only church I've really been a member of. So I don't know about like an all black church or like experienced it. I can't say I experienced it myself. I've been at Hope. That's the only church I've been a member of. Like prior to Hope, I was going to Koinonia only for like a couple months, and I couldn't say I had any cases of discrimination or anything like that because I knew the youth pastor very well. So I was already kind of in there. You know what I mean? Like I knew the faculty members there already. So I was accepted. But definitely it wasn't as multicultural as Hope is. So Hope, to me, church is multicultural because of my experience at Hope.
Okay.
That's dope. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good, man. What you got, Dave?
As somebody that I grew up in, a black church, black organization. I follow the same thought process as Zeke does, and from what Dave was saying too. Let me break it down like this to you about the economics or the social aspect of it. The church that I grew up in, the black church that I grew up in, me and my cousin were talking one day, and we were like, "Do you realize how many of the youth our age had children out of wedlock?" Man, we did the math. It was like 70-something% of the youth my age had kids out of wedlock. And there was no discrimination. It was like the regular kids, some of the deacons' kids, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
high-ranking people and what we realize, man, is like when you're younger and you leave and go to another church, you're like, "Oh, this church is better. They have better things for the youth and better." It's not even that. It's not that it's any better. It's just that the church that we grew up in, the black church, they utilize what they had. You understand what I'm saying? It's like today you see youth pastors and stuff like they've gone to school for theology. They have social working backgrounds, all of this stuff. We didn't have youth leaders and youth pastors and choir directors that had those backgrounds. You understand what I'm saying? So they used the tools that they had to try to teach us, and they used the tradition that the church had pushed for so many years to teach us what they had learned. Now, obviously, having kids out of wedlock wasn't something that they learned, but we were young, man. We were gonna sneak and do what we did, and that's what we did. But that wasn't a reflection on our pastor. It wasn't a reflection on the black church. But when we left and went to a different church, we had the mentality of, yeah, they're doing better here because of, it's just a better environment, blah, blah, blah. But then as you get older and you get wiser, you realize that there is a social and an economical difference between the churches that are in place today and then the churches that we grew up in. Mm-hmm. And then the church that I grew up in, me and my wife were just talking about this morning. She was singing a song about one of the characters, one of the people in the Bible, and there was a children's song, and she was singing it. She's like, "Did you guys, you remember that song?" And I was like, "Nah, babe, I don't," because we didn't have that kind of, in our Sunday school, we didn't have that kind of teaching, but my wife did. My wife is a PK, she's a pastor's kid, and the youth program that they had at a Puerto Rican church, she had way more tools and stuff at her disposal, provided to them, and way more teaching than we did. And I'm sure that our organization was bigger than her father's church. But it's like you use what you have available to you. You know what I'm saying? So, and then one to point to Zeke one last time. I just finished hearing a 2-part message from the pastor where I attend church now, and he was saying, Zeke said, "Why does it have to be a black church?" It's the table that is set by the Lord. This is the Lord's table, and we don't get to decide who sits at that table. We don't get to decide to say, "Well, this is a black table or this is a white table." That's God's table, and God decides who gets to sit at that table. We don't, and we have kind of, excuse the term, but we have bastardized the concept of sitting at the table by socially saying who could sit at the table, economically saying who could sit at the table, racially, you know what I'm saying? That's our doing. We've messed that process up. Mm-hmm. So that's how I see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good stuff. So if someone was to say, that's all good and fine, that the church is supposed to be one body, it shouldn't be all this separation, right? But they'd be like, but the reality is that it is, right? It is separate. It is the most segregated organization or institution and now throughout the world, right? And now you have this migration of people of color going to predominantly white ministries and then turning around and crapping on their own people. As far as the view of your theology and doctrines are no good, and the experience that I had was no good. And to the point where in some instances it's almost dismissive of the fact that, well, you came to Christ through this vein. Now that you feel like you've come to a greater sense of theology, now what you grew up with, your tradition of your own people and their belief as far as how they exercise their faith is no longer acceptable. It's not good anymore. Because now that I've moved up and I've moved out into the suburbs, like Jamma said, and I got a little money in my pocket, and now I know how to play the game. Now I'm going to acclimate fully over here, and we begin to shun our own experience. And that's something that I kind of want to deal with, because it almost says that then it puts a negative perspective on all black churches or all black led or predominantly black ministries, as if to say that blacks are not capable of possessing good doctrine and good theology.
Okay.
I personally have never experienced, and I'm keeping it real, man. I've never experienced where I attended a church that was led, and I'm gonna. So when you say predominantly white, do you mean led by a white pastor?
Led by a white pastor. The congregation is predominantly white. Like, you basically may be one of the handful of black people that may attend this church.
Yeah, I've never been in a scenario where I attended a church like that. The closest church that I ever attended that was where the pastors were white was Faith Temple under Pastor Steve Edmond.
Yeah.
And when I went there, bruh, it was like there were black people that attended there, and I'm gonna keep it real with you. I had no idea that I was in a church led by a white pastor, because there were some Sundays where he would get up there, man, and the spirit would be on him. He'll tear his keyboard up, man. He would get the keyboard dude off, and he would play. Instead of preaching, he would start shouting, man, going across it. And I'm like, I never seen, this is my ignorance, but I never saw a quote unquote white pastor like catch the Holy Spirit and shout across the stage before like that. You know what I'm saying? And I knew it was real because I've had conversations with that pastor one-on-one before, and he's told me that the Lord had to work on him through him on some things as far as his leadership, and it was always a struggle for him. And so whenever you saw him going acting out like that on stage, it was clear it was him dealing with those things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. He
was having breakthroughs, so he was very transparent about that. He's like, man, listen, I shout, man, because the God has been good to me.
Yeah.
So I've never had a situation where I went to a church where there was only a handful of black people, and where I saw any kind of snobby thumbing the nose. Oh, look, we're out here with going to a white church and we're better than all that. I've never dealt with that.
It's very subtle, because let's get to where we want to get to.
Oh, I'm sure it's
it's like, for instance, like Avadi Bachman, right? He's a black Calvinist. He rocked with John MacArthur's ministry, and reforms. I don't want to put white Christian conservatives there, so I'm just gonna call them Reformed Christians, right? Reformed theology, who practice Reformed theology, who are mostly white, that we know of, correct?
Yeah.
That we know of, that are on the world stage. They won't, out in the open, crap on Pentecostal or black evangelicals, but through their sermons, they kind of indirectly attacking them. Right?
Yeah.
They are. Because they be like, they going to church and everybody screaming and praising the Lord and singing a song, and they got bands and the whole nine, boom, boom, boom. And they nothing in the Bible, because I heard John MacArthur say that, R.C. Sproul say that, Vadi Bachman say that. So basically, you're talking about the black church, right? Because black churches is live. Y'all get live on the worship.
Yeah, man.
Y'all get live. Like, everybody be like, everybody feeling the spirit. The music is funky. Oh, down, and the preacher's like, hallelujah. I feel a calling and all that. Boom. Yeah. And where the Reformed theology is very, very dead, almost like Catholicism. It's just a teaching. We're going to pray. It's very like the monks from the Middle Ages.
It's like it can be monotone and kind of regimented.
Yes, exactly. Great adjectives.
You actually bring up a very good point that's kind of leading into
So that's
where
what I
wanna
meant
go.
about the subtlety
Yeah.
of the attack on the black church, and people from the black church that go to these white churches also do the same thing.
Yeah.
They be like, oh yeah, they be on the spirit. I don't go there no more. I worship like this now.
Yes.
You know, so
I think-
that's what we're talking about.
I think that the Reformed churches and have that subtlety or have that conservative kind of worship because some of their the doctrine, like they don't believe in a lot of the gifts of the Holy Spirit. They do believe in the gifts, but they believe that it was for a certain time.
Yeah, dispensational.
So you won't hear, so to give you an example, I went to a place and it was Reformed, and they don't do when the song was over, everybody just clapped, regular, like a regular, you know what I mean? It wasn't like as a church
Passionate,
that's
right?
Pentecostal would, you have people praying, some people in tongues, some people, when the song is going. They were more like, boom, like the song's over, bang, quiet, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I went with you, right, Don?
Yeah.
That was over at Alexandria Bay. We went to that Reformed church. Remember?
That was one of them. That was
yeah.
one of them. Remember, it was like, we was like, yo, song's over, bang, okay,
Yeah.
next song.
It was very formal, very formal.
Yeah, because they
quiet.
don't believe that the gifts are being used now. Some of the gifts are being used now. They feel that it was at the time of the apostles when they was at that time.
Yeah.
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 So I believe that's why you get some of that.
Right.
And you guys could correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes,
No,
theologically.
I would agree.
Yeah.
And I think what my major problem with that premise is that, again, you're making this synonymous with black theology or black ministry, right? It's almost to say like the only ministries that hoop and shout are black, right? But I know of many.
Yeah. You seen them down south white boys? They get
many
bucked.
white churches, predominantly white churches, that they go in, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt.
They go in. You know what I'm saying? So I just don't like the idea of, it seems like everything negative always has to be followed up with, well, it's synonymous with black people and black culture. And that to me is, man, it's so detrimental, because then what happens is when blacks have left and they go to Reformed theology, and again, I'm not against Reformed theology or anything like that. I don't agree with all their doctrinal statements, but I think some of my views might even be considered to be Reformed. So I can care less about terms and labels and all that stuff. But what I have noticed is that people of color who have left, let's say, the Pentecostal denomination and have gone over to the Reform will then turn around and demonize Pentecostals, even to the point where I've heard one brother say that he was upset because he felt like he found out that his pastor had been lying to him this whole time. And it's like, bro, he's preaching what he has understood to be true. Now, just because he may not have come to this understanding that you now have, because once you were up under his teaching and you didn't see nothing wrong with it. You was happy, you was raising your hands, you was doing whatever. But now that you've been enlightened to this new understanding or deeper truth, now he's no longer any good. Now we're discarding. And it's like, wait a minute, bro. But what you're dismissing is that without him, you wouldn't even be here. So hold up on the condemning and tossing him aside, and maybe just see that he's a human being who may not have come to this understanding, just like it took you some time to get here, because this is just the way he's always perceived it, and it may be a struggle for him to find, to come to a new understanding, if you will. What you guys think about that?
I think it comes to there comes a point where you gotta, like you said, recognize that he brought you to Christ through whatever teachings that you heard and whatever experiences that you had around him. So first you got to thank God for his life and his role in your life. And then instead of openly attacking that man, pray for him.
Yeah.
If you think that he's misguided, talk to God about it.
Right.
Take it to God. Don't take it to Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and just bash people, because that's one of the things that bothers me about like the battle of the churches, and like Dave was saying, people getting up and throwing shade at other denominations and talking about how they conduct their worship services and everything. You got to realize that you're doing more damage to Christianity as a whole, because now people who don't believe, they're looking at you and they're looking at us bashing other churches and bashing other people that claim to believe the same thing that we do. And it's like, Christians can't even get along, but they telling us we wrong. Why do we want anything to do with that?
Right.
It's a bad look.
So you gotta take issues like that to God behind closed doors, and try as best as possible when you're in a public light, present a united front.
Oh yeah. Amen.
Find some kind of common ground that you can stand on. So when people come at the church, I don't want to take it here, but I'm gonna take it here. It's kind of like
get them.
Kind of like what was going on with the Black Lives Matter movement. All right. The major defense that I saw was, how come we can't come together when we killing each other? Why is it always a problem when the cops are killing black people, and why you guys want to come together as a unit now, but then when the cops aren't killing the black people are killing each other? I had to equate that one time to I used an example one time. When me and my brother were younger, we would have like wrestling matches with kids in the neighborhood. Now, separately, there was a period of time where I couldn't stand my brother because I wanted a sister. So it took a while for me to like accept the fact that this is my brother. I'm stuck with him. I gotta love him and protect him. All right. But I remember one time specifically where we were all wrestling, and I heard my brother screaming out. And I turned around, and some kid that was bigger than him had my brother in a sharpshooter. I put my brother in that same move plenty of times, but when I see some other dude doing it, I ran up on him and chokeslammed him. That's what happens. You can't mess with my little brother. We might have our squabbles. That's stuff that we got to deal with behind closed doors. So the issues in the black community, we know they exist. Don't bring those up when we're trying to fight for racial equality and social justices. This is the same thing with the church. The issues with the church is black church, white church, Lutheran, Protestant, Pentecostal, whatever. If you believe that Jesus was born, died on the cross, and raised after 3 days for your sins and my sins, that's what we got to stand on in the public light.
Yeah.
All the other differences and everything, how you worship or whether the gifts are for today or not, all the doctrinal stuff, keep that behind closed doors. Take it to God first and foremost.
Yeah.
Because as much as you may think you're right, God might sit you down one day and say, hey, they might not be on point, but neither are you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's deep.
So before you go around preaching your truths, talking about, oh, he was lying to me the whole time and this is the truth and blah, 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 you make yourself look like a fool and you're doing damage to the faith.
Yeah.
That's right. And we're going to continue. We got to get to our street spotlight. We're going to continue this
when we come back, I
after.
want to touch on what Zeke
All right, no
says.
doubt. What you got for us?
I got the Green Bay Packers loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and it's Brady versus the young gun of Patrick Mahomes this next Sunday. I got KC. I'm going for KC.
Yeah, baby, the young fella.
Brady got too many, man. Lose this one and retire. Leave us alone, bro. Gives other people some chances to win. And what's other going on in the news is President Joe Biden just executive ordered Trump's executive order to allow boys who are transgendering to girls to participate in girls' sports in middle school and high school and use their locker rooms.
Wow.
And that is kind of crazy.
Wow.
These transgender males are going to dominate women's sports. It's not funny. I'm sorry, but
kind of funny, but
it ain't even fair. It's like, come on, man. Come on. That's kind of crazy right there, man. And that's all I got for you. Those two things right there. I want to get back to this church thing here, man.
That's huge, though. We might do a topic on
what?
that, bro.
I'm always bring up politics and sports.
No, but that is kind of.
Yeah.
Come on now,
The
man. I
sport
mean,
thing
come
is a
on,
little
man.
wild, man.
Yeah, that's a
No, that's
little.
out there,
That's a
bro.
little.
That's crazy. That's
Yo,
that's
so
taking
you
it
know,
too
you
far.
got.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
That's
man.
crazy.
Like if I had a daughter, I'd feel some kind of way about that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like, what you gonna have this transgender 256'1" boxing against a, you know what I mean? Come on, man. Like,
Right.
come on now. That's not even
Or you
fair.
can have a dude who would normally be the whack dude on the men's team.
Yeah.
He go to the girls team now. He's a
Yeah.
superstar.
Oh, yo, I got a
He's
dude.
Jordan. He's
I got a
Jordan on
dude.
the
Check it out.
field
There's
now.
this guy named Craig Telford. He's a dude, a track runner.
Yeah.
He was ranked 200th in men's hurdle in 2016. Ranked 200th in the world. He transgendered to a woman in 2018. Now his name is Cece, and he won the championship, finishing first in women's hurdles in 2019.
Wow, bro.
So
Wow.
did y'all hear about
True
the-
story.
Did you guys hear about the excuse me, the comedian in UK?
No.
He saw that there was some kind of bench press contest going on for women.
Oh, I think I did hear this.
And he went in there and registered for it, and they said, "Well, you can't. You're male." You know, he said, "No, I identify. You're only seeing what you see. I identify as a woman."
Oh my God.
And they had to let him go into the contest. Bro, he obliterated the record for the bench press, and he came out. He was like, "I only did it because I want to show how
silly it is.
ridiculous
how
it is,
crazy
bro.
this is."
Why are we
man.
entertaining this,
Yeah,
man?
he's just like, listen, man. Listen, who am I to tell somebody who they want to be? You know what I'm saying? It's like if you want to identify as Starscream, man, from the Transformers,
Whatever.
that's on you.
Yeah.
That's on you. But like when you start taking it into other areas, man, like that's gonna have a long lasting effect on. You know, schools.
What would y'all say
I
to
mean,
the
it's just-
women though?
it's-
Some women would argue that
Oh,
fact,
yeah.
like,
Women are
yeah,
bad.
they'd be like, yo, we can do everything just as you. You guys are being like egotistical, speaking like that.
Yeah.
What would you guys say
But
about that?
it's been proven time and time again that when you let a transgender who used to be a man participate in women's sports, they begin to dominate.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, it's not even fair, man.
There's
That's
a reason
just-
why there's an NBA and a WNBA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly, right?
You're not gonna put
Yeah.
Sue Bird on the court with LeBron and them boys and expect her to do what she was doing. In
Even
the
though she
WNBA.
nice.
She's
Right,
nice.
right,
right.
Don't get me wrong, she's nice. I'm not trying to take anything away from what she is as a basketball
Right.
player, except for the fact that expecting her to be able to compete on the court with men. She's not going to be Sue Bird, the Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, man.
Sorry, ladies.
All right, Dave. So
Sorry.
what you got, man?
So, you know, when Zeke was touching on, you know, the
BLM.
yeah. And it wasn't even about the BLM. It was actually about the division. Just like the whole I think the division, whereas a black church, white church, you know, black members leaving to go to white churches and then looking down or whatever, that stuff has been in place for a long time. I remember asking my grandfather, "Granddaddy, how come our church is named so close to another church?" And he said, my grandfather used to call me, because I was the only grandchild at the time, he used to call me grandchillin'. Because I was the grandchild, grandchillin'. He said, grandchillin', the reason why is, I'm gonna just tell you, one person got mad at another person and went and started their own church. They wanted the name to be better than the other church, so they put more words in it. Right. And I was like, really? He was like, really? That's what happened. So for years, I was like, you know, I think he just maybe told me that but my grandfather wasn't the type to mince words. He didn't tell me stuff just to get rid of me. He taught me everything I know about using tools and stuff. So why would he turn around and when it came to the church, and he was a deacon at our church, you know? And then I started looking at it, man. It's like, you got people, you know, a church splits, and then the church, you know, comes from the split, and then they go and they name themselves close to what the other church's name, but they add some more adjectives or whatever to it. And then it's like, okay, now we have our own church. And then, oh, by the way, you know what? We kind of believe what our last church believed in, but we believe, if, you know, I'm being silly here, but if you stand on your head while you do it, then we're different. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And
so now it's like, and by the way, we call ourselves this denomination. So we got like all these different denominations, man, but we're serving one God. We serve one single solitary God, but we have all these different denominations and all these different beliefs. And I feel like, personally, the reason it's like that is because you have a bunch of people, again, who want to set the table and decide who gets to sit at the table. That's my personal view on it. And it's like they got to be in control. They got to decide, well, you know what, because you believe in this, or you want to change your name or your sex to this, you can't sit at the table. Wrong. You don't get to decide who sits at the table. The Father gets to decide who sits at the table. And so that division with the churches splitting, starting their own churches, renaming themselves, changing their denominations, okay? You add that to tradition. Well, we've always done it this way. Why the church that you guys went to in Alexandria Bay, why are they so, I don't want to say stale, but why are they so monotone? Why are they
rigid?
Right. It's because, well, we've always done it that way. That's we're supposed to do it that way because the people that came before us, that's how they had church. And then you get somebody that comes in, Faith Temple, they did it a certain way. Then they get some people with some color and some flavor. They come in there and they throw that flavor in there. And then you got the pastor throwing down, shouting, running across the stage, and he's white. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, no matter what backgrounds we come from, man, when we come together, we all bring some flavor to it. And if we just look at each other as brothers and sisters instead of he's white, he's Puerto Rican, he's black, he's whatever. If we just sit at the table, man, and just realize we're all at the table for a common reason because the Father invited us to the table.
Yeah.
Then
Can I?
Go ahead, bro.
No. I want to piggyback on what you and Zeke, both you guys mentioned. For the church in Alexandria Bay, they were monotone, right? I just want to point out this too. Point this out, and they were predominantly. It was a predominantly white church, but and Gemma can attest to this. But the love. Like they were trying to have us come back after service, chill, eat with them.
Yeah, they was
like
cool.
they showed up. Yeah, so I give them a lot of credit. They were like really. They didn't make us feel like out. Like they felt like family. Like they was like, come eat. Where you guys are going? Come on, come back. We're gonna have some food.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated it from that. And like what Dave Jones was saying, if we get past these little traditions, we could see I seen the grace there. I seen the love.
Right.
I want to mention that.
Yeah, it was love. It was love.
Yeah, it was love.
I'm gonna say.
But I want to say.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, you got something to say about that right there?
No, go ahead.
Okay. But I want to say this to piggyback on what Zeke and Dave Jones are saying too. We have to recognize the tricks of the enemy because this is nothing new.
Right.
This division stuff is nothing new. Okay.
Right.
And the enemy has always used the division, to kind of like stop, stop the growth of the church. The Bible says the kingdom divided, it lies itself at waste. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we remember back when the apostles, he was talking about the division then, and he's like, well, one says they follow Paul, and one says he follows Cephas. You know what I mean? And one says he follows Christ, he was, Paul was barking on the division. Like, you guys, we all baptized in one under one. You know what I mean? One name is all Christ. You know what I'm saying? And he was, see, back then even the division was starting up because one was being discipled by this and one, and see that how the enemy was using that because they know the house can't stand if it's already the foundation is divided.
Right.
And now we go into just like what Jones was saying, Dave Jones was saying, and Zeke was saying, now, and God, and then the enemy uses that now to keep us divided because if we all stand together, there's power. But if we don't, if the reform and this doesn't mess with this and the charismatic movement, then guess what? There's no power there. Division is no power. So the enemy used that. Now he's using race. The black church, white church, again, because if we stand together, there's power. And there's power in that movement. But guess what? The enemy keeps using See, this is why we know we need Christ so much. We fail so much that we need God so much because we keep falling to the same trickery. We keep falling to the same, we get duped by the same trickery. You know what I'm saying? And it shows now the effect of, because when I was doing research and Kurt was talking about the subject, they said that just people believing in Christianity, 70% drop.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Just in general, people going to church. Like, as a whole nation, as a country. You know what I mean? That's just what you're getting. A lot of people coming with, oh, I believe in no religion. I believe because it's just like what Zeke was saying. Then why am I go to that church? You guys are not even standing. You guys don't even agree on anything.
Yeah.
Why am I believe in Christianity? There's a battle. Why am I enter that battle with you guys? You guys don't got. So guess what? Now with all this division and all this stuff, now you're starting to see, and we know it's going to come to pass. But this is how it's going to come to pass. How the great falling away.
Yeah.
Because of the division.
You guys ever seen the skit on Saturday Night Live, Black Jeopardy?
Yes. Yes.
You guys ever seen the one where Tom Hanks was on there? Yes. I'm gonna float that in. I'm gonna B-roll that in or put a link in on our YouTube channel so everybody can check that out. I don't want to spoil it, but y'all need to watch that.
Yeah.
Because
I think y'all posted it on one of our group texts.
Did I think I did. And I'm gonna just set it up for everybody.
And Kurt got mad because we were like, "Yo, that's hilarious." And Kurt was like, "Yo, I ain't digging none of that."
But that's
you remember
okay.
that?
Yeah, I remember.
But the thing, the message that I want everybody to take away from that is not the stereotypes, because we know what SNL is. SNL is going to SNL. They're going to put all the stereotypes and stuff out there, and I don't even care about the topics and stuff that they use. The fact that, and just so everybody know, man, black writers actually created that. That's, Keenan, whatever his name is, he actually created that. But that skit to me, man, Tom Hanks in the MAGA hat, he's the only white guy on Jeopardy, on Black Jeopardy, in the MAGA hat. You could see the tension. You could just see the tension when they announced him and he was one of the contestants. But the message that I got from watching that is that we are more alike than we are different, man. And just because
I agree.
Just because you see a dude in a MAGA hat does not mean that dude is a flaming racist and that he don't like black people or any people of color, man.
Perfect example, Jamma. All right.
So fighting.
You feel what I'm saying? So yeah,
Yeah. So I think we got to address what we haven't addressed.
What's that, big dog?
Right. So obviously we know that the enemy is definitely behind all the separation. But when we talk about specifically black and white, we can't have that conversation without dealing with the elephant in the room, and that's the racial history between the two groups.
I was just going to touch on that, Kurt.
You know what I mean?
Can I
yes, please.
interject real quick?
Yes.
All right, the reason separation of black church and white church is that in the beginning, the conception of this country, blacks didn't have any rights. They were caught up in chattel slavery, which is a completely different form of slavery from the East, right? Because in the East, slavery was they treated their slaves like family with respect and
like
dignity.
Indentured servants.
Yes.
Of thing.
When it came to the Western Hemisphere, it was chattel slavery. They were just property. They had no rights at all. You could rape them, kill them, sell them, nothing. Separate families, the whole nine. So during that time, blacks were excluded from Reformed churches. Right? They couldn't worship with the white man because the white man was the master and superior, and you can't worship with us. Right? But we will give you a white version of our God to enslave your minds and physically. And then they were excluded from education. So they didn't have the proper tools and abilities to read the Bible and study for themselves and be like, yo, this is what they say. Eventually it happened, through pioneers like Frederick Douglass and, big dogs like that. And then the blacks, they lacked the freedom for theological reflection. Like the white man didn't allow black people to have a different opinion on theology. This is our theology and this is what you believe and that's it, right? And this is all throughout the history of our country.
Yes.
And that's why now Reformed theology can appear culturally white, because it elevated to this point all the way here where eventually the blacks learned how to read, got educated, learned their own theology, interpreted their own way, and then formed their own black churches and formed their own ways of worship, which is complete polar opposite of how whites worship, right?
In some cases.
Right.
Some cases.
And economically, you got a black church on Hudson and Clifford, right? It's a black church because the majority of people who live there are black. That's why it's a black church. And then you go to Victor, where everybody's white. They go to church there. It's a white church. So economics, right? These people are
Geographics.
geographics and economics. So that's a big part in black churches and white churches, which originated from the conception of this country.
Yeah.
That's why we want to bring that up. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, and that's a good point because it, like I said, we can't deal with the separation without dealing with how it started.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And unfortunately, you know, we have a dark history when it comes to that, right? And then on top of everything you just put out is you have when blacks started to convert, if you will, to Christianity, they were taught by who?
The white man.
They were taught by white Christians, but with a white mentality of Christianity. It was excluding you as a black person. But you can accept my theology, but you really can't take part of it. You can't contribute to it, even though the oldest Bible is known to be found in Ethiopia. All right, so black people can't contribute to this. That's the way it seemed in America. And what I like to point out is, if we look at all that, take all of that into account, let's put aside the division and everything else for a second. Look at the miracle working of God. That here we have this large group of people taken from another place, brought over to a country. They don't know the language. They don't understand anything. Yet somehow, even in the midst of all the oppression and the atrocities and everything that was done towards them, somehow they still found faith. Somehow these rich traditions of song and dance was birthed out of this pain. And then what bothers me as a person of color, I'm a Christian who happens to be black, what bothers me is that for you to tell me that I'm wrong for having that kind of expression of faith, when it is a miracle, nothing short of a miracle, that I even have this faith to begin with. When, let's be honest, dominant culture didn't want me to have this faith, not like this. Not with me being free. As long as I was slave, yeah, that was cool. But to be free and freely thinking. So not just free indeed in Christ, but free indeed in civilization. And now I have free indeed and Christ coming together. And now I celebrate that. And now I'm supposed to look back and say that my expression of how I celebrate that is wrong? Bro, I got problems with that.
So, but from your point though, Kurt, you're saying that this is blacks doing this to other blacks.
Yes, yeah, because what happens is when they go to, no, it's not all. Let me make sure I make that clear. This is not all black people, but what I've noticed is that when blacks, and even Latinos, I've seen Latinos do this too. When they go to these, let's say Reformed churches, that's mainly what we talk about is Reform and let's say Pentecostal, right? Usually when you're so extreme with the Pentecostal, then they swing very extreme, let's say Reform.
Right.
Right? And then they turn around and demonize each other. But what I don't like is the demonization of how I express myself in my faith. Is looked down upon as, for some reason, it's looked at as negative. Like it don't take all of that. You don't have to. Wait a minute, man. You can say that because you ain't been through what I've been through.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I think that so the way that it sounds to me is like the history of between blacks and whites in this country is kind of like it's like a springboard for the issue.
Absolutely, but
in the scenario, the white church is actually an innocent bystander, and let me explain why. This table is the white church. I'm a black guy. I sit this here. You're a black guy. You knock it down. It's a tablet that a black guy sat down on a white table, but another black person knocked it down. The table don't have nothing to do with that.
Right. The table don't in that scenario. However, let's deal with it going a little deeper.
Okay.
Right? Because that's dealing with blacks turning around. Now we got to deal with what happens, because now if we look, there's a trend going on right now of black people leaving predominantly white-led churches.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And so why do we think that is? I mean, I know we all know the answer, but why we think that is?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
What started that?
The BLM movement.
Yeah.
So we go back to what? The race thing.
Racism,
right?
Yeah.
It comes back to the race thing because now it's like black people was like, wait a minute, here is the moment where we had your voice. White people were actually listening, except the white evangelical. Hold on.
Right.
Now I got a problem. Because why is it that the world seems to be ready to have this conversation, but you're supposed to be my brother, and you don't want to have that conversation? Even if you don't agree with everything, even if you feel like some of it may be over the top, at least sit down with me and have this conversation.
Yeah, break the bread and listen.
But that didn't happen. And so now we're seeing the opposite migration, where you're seeing black people are beginning to leave these predominantly white churches.
Well, I think one of the biggest problems was like being silent would have been bad enough, but it seemed like whenever the white evangelical church would speak, they were siding with the quote unquote enemy of what we were dealing with. They were always talking. I was listening to what channel? It was one of the Christian radio stations. I listened to the teachings and everything. And throughout the whole time, they would have advertisements asking people to pray for the police officers, and we don't understand how hard their job is, and if you see a police officer, go out of your way to show them respect and everything. And that's all fine and dandy, but do you understand why someone who might look like me would be apprehensive in doing so?
Yeah, in that situation, it's like what they're doing, man, is like whoever is leading that channel, they're not taking the temperature of the room.
Right.
They have good intentions, but they're not taking the temperature of the room at the time. You know what I'm saying?
I think the problem with the radio is you don't know who's listening.
Exactly.
So
you're trying to play.
You're speaking to people who look like you, but when you got somebody who looks like me is listening for the word,
right?
And you got that coming across the airwaves, it's like
because they're trying to. In reality, man, they're trying to play to all sides. They're trying to not pick a side, but they're trying to pander to all sides and say, hey, we want you guys to know, we care about everybody and we're neutral in this whole thing, but we want you to, but we're specifically asking you to reach out to this group. Why don't you just say, pray for everybody involved.
Pray for everybody, love on everybody.
Pray for everybody involved because this is a tough time for everybody right now. You know what I'm saying? So that's clearly an example of somebody not gauging the temperature of the room at the time, man, and then saying, "Hey, I'm for this, but I want you guys to think about this group in particular." You can't do that, man.
Yeah, and it could be a case of in some cases, because I think y'all being a little easy. Maybe they just don't care.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's just be honest. Maybe maybe what's happening is their true feelings and their true heart has been revealed.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah,
you know what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
And that's probably why you got the migration of black folks, quote unquote, coming back home, because it's like, look, I can take what I gained from the white church and bring it back to y'all, but I'm no longer giving my time, service, effort, dollars, all of that to an organization who won't have my back when I'm crying out for help.
And I'll tell you this, man. I know an organization here locally, man. Huge church, man, that has lost 66% of its membership because it stood up with the black community and it stood up for what's right and what's wrong.
And they lost?
What do you mean?
You said they lost.
They lost 66% of their membership because the leadership was like seeing other leaders from the church go on Facebook and all and saying all of this stuff, and senior leadership was like, you can't be doing that, and they're like, we out because this is what we believe, and you're not going to tell us what to believe. You know what I'm saying? And then it's like, and you know what, man, this church has a white pastor. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's the crazy part.
And it's like so you definitely see it. You see both sides. Now I'm not the way that I look at this stuff, man, is like I so want us to stop. I was telling my wife the other day, man, our lives through this pandemic, our lives are not going to ever be the same, man, because socially, economically, what has happened as a result of the pandemic, whether you believe in masking or not, whether you believe in the shot or not, we see real results of what's happening with this pandemic. And it's not just medical, man. It is socially, It's racially, and we are so divided right now.
Yeah.
And this pandemic, man, met with the election, and it just created like an atomic bomb. There's this bomb that they use in the military. They don't use it anymore. It's called a daisy cutter, man. And all it is like a 5,000 pound bomb, just a tank filled with gasoline, and they drop it, and they used to use it to clear out a field to make a landing pad for helicopters.
Wow.
That's what's going on with our society right now. It's a huge daisy cutter, man.
Oh, yeah. Everything. Race,
everything,
gender, theology.
Everything.
It's crazy,
Everything's
man.
on the table, right?
Everything, man. Everything.
Everything. Politics. Oh my God.
Even schools, man. Education, like how about the argument about teachers going back to school. You got people who aren't even in the education system arguing about what teachers need to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Teachers know what they need to do. We don't need people who not in that environment telling them what they need to do.
They got enough. They got enough on their plate. Trust me, I'm married to a teacher, so
There you go, man. So but
you
Kurt,
know-
to your point though, man, this is like, I appreciate you bringing this topic, man, because I want our, the stuff we bring, man, is for our viewers. We want our viewers to see, like, we don't hide from difficult topics. No. You know what I'm saying? We don't hide from the things that people are really afraid to talk about. But with that being said, too, we're also all of us are Christian men. You know what I'm saying? And we want to make sure, we want to have our hearts aligned in the right place. You know what I'm saying? We open up the podcast. We have brothers like my brother Zeke come on here, man, because he has he may have a different perspective than maybe Jammer has or I have, and we want everybody to feel like, their perspective is being heard or being brought to the forefront.
That's right.
We're going to give everybody an opportunity to speak up about how they feel about a situation. You know.
And the reason why I wanted to have this conversation too is to reveal some of the stuff that, I don't even want to say reveal. I think it's just to talk about things that we don't like to talk about when it comes to the separation between white and black churches.
Yeah.
Right? And to understand that listen, to my white brothers and sisters, okay, I have a different way of expressing that may seem a little, I guess the term is charismatic, right? Mm-hmm. And they may be, for the most part, now we're talking about generalization right now.
Yeah.
For the most part, they're a little bit more conservative. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
That's what I want to get to, is where stop demonizing me because I may have a more exuberant, passionate way of expressing. Okay? Don't demonize me for eating meat just because maybe you decided you don't want to. That's pretty much what it comes down to. Right. And then I shouldn't do the same.
Right.
You know what I mean? I can't turn around and now demonize you because, they don't really, do. I'm not going to demonize you. Mm-hmm. Now, I may not prefer, what I'm saying, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to call you, I'm not going to question your salvation over it.
Right.
And that's where the hurt comes from, is that when these things happen, man, then they turn around and begin to question your salvation.
Yeah.
And that's the hurtful part.
Yeah.
I think
don't exacerbate his disparities.
All right, Mr. SAT word. Dang.
Go ahead, Zeke.
But I think if people could just sit back and start to appreciate the beauty and the diversity of this thing called Christianity, like, I know, like, some people, like you were saying, if the message ain't delivered with the hooping and hollering, he ain't preach.
Right.
All right. If it's too monotone, or if it is delivered with the hooping and hollering, that was just a bunch of fluff. There was no message in there.
Right.
If you could just sit back and appreciate the different backgrounds of the people who serve the same God that you do. Like, Christianity is unique in that way. Like, you look at Buddhists, they all look the same.
Right.
Jewish folk, they all look the same.
Right.
All right. Muslims, for the most part, they all
that.
look the same. Christianity is, I'm about to pull this word from back in the day. It's like a cornucopia.
What?
Of beauty.
You got some
It's like,
competition, Jim.
you look at it and it's like you can see the black and the white and the Latino and the Asian, and if we could all come together and perform that present that united front,
right,
and show that you may speak a different language, you may worship a different way, you may doctrinally disagree, but at the end of the day, God.
Yeah.
Same
right.
God.
That's right.
God of Isaac,
That's right.
Abraham, and Jacob. That's who we
Amen.
serve, that's who we love, and that's who we're trying to present to the world. That, I think, it's a beautiful thing. And people miss the opportunity to observe that beauty and appreciate that beauty because it don't look like what I grew up with.
Yeah.
It don't look like what I'm used to.
Yeah.
So,
And if I could top it off, man, I'll say this. Growing up in a predominantly black church, y'all know how we get down, right? Now, I was more on the conservative side as far as how we did things, but we still, I mean, you know, we would shout and do all that stuff, but it wasn't like how you see some churches. They kind of over the top with it, in my opinion. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
they get
Just
a
being
little
honest,
wild.
right?
Yeah,
you get a little wild.
You keeping it real, man.
My bishop used to always say, look, man,
Yeah.
the Holy Ghost is not going to have you acting unseemly.
Yeah.
You ain't going to be knocking over chairs
Yeah,
and all
yeah.
that stuff. Come on, man.
Yeah, my old pastor said that son. He's like, some of that stuff I seen
Yeah,
today.
man.
He goes, I don't
In
know
fact,
if
he would
that's
sit
God.
you down, man.
Yeah.
If he
Yeah.
Yo, this dude was raw, man. He was
Yeah.
real.
I
But
feel you. I seen that before.
but growing up, of course, man, that gospel, man, is what we call black gospel. It's in my soul, and it wasn't until I got into my late teens that I started listening to. It wasn't K-Love. It used to be 102.7 FM The Light here in Rochester, and they used to play. They used to do both. They used to play some gospel and so on and so forth, and then they would play like your K-Love type stuff. And it wasn't until I heard that, and I heard a couple of songs. I think it was Michael W. Smith was the first one, and Chris Tomlin, and I'm like, oh, I kind of like that.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was more subtle. It wasn't as as lively as
Yeah.
I'm used to, but it was like. It was nice.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then I went to a church where it was predominantly white and they were worshiping, but they were worshiping, right? And I'm like, man, this is beautiful, man. I've been missing this the whole time.
right.
Because of my, you know what I'm saying? Growing up, again, you grow up with these biases already ingrained in you
Yeah.
from your society, right? From your surroundings. And I grew an appreciation for what we may call white worship. Right, and that started me to really self-examine and reevaluate how I perceive how we express ourselves in our faith. And it's okay that, hey man, if you a little bit more calm, maybe a little more quiet, that's fine. I want to be maybe a little bit more loud, a little bit more exuberant, that's okay. But like you said, we need to appreciate the diversities in each other. I can appreciate that. I can appreciate how you worship, and you should be able to appreciate how I worship. I can appreciate how you preach sometimes. Maybe, hey, I need to have a message that's just straightforward, no extra stuff surrounding it.
Right.
Sometimes you need that. But let's be real. Sometimes you need that message that gets you riled up. There's a time and a place for it. And I think if we can start looking at each other and see each other as valuable for kingdom building, no matter what color you are, no matter how you may express your faith, if we can begin to look at each other as valuable for kingdom building, we might be able to undo some of this separation that we have.
And Hope
Listen, I want to say one thing,
Hope Christian Fellowship
and,
is a perfect
and that was
example of
beautiful.
that. Go ahead, Don.
Listen, that was beautiful. Hold on, I want to say one thing. I want to stay on everything you said was right. All of y'all, that's on point. I want to bark on one thing though. For my Latino people, I want to bark on one thing. One thing, bro, my Latino people that I've noticed, that I've seen, and it's a little bit the division on my Latino people. Like, I don't know, y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but you don't really see Spanish mega churches nowhere. Okay, all Latino people. They're usually small churches. Probably, and I know locally, we could probably say Light of the World, the biggest Spanish church. That's probably the biggest Spanish church, right? That's predominantly Latinos. And the reason why is because everybody want to be the pastor in the Latino churches. Everybody want to be the pastor, bro. Don't nobody want to come along and help build up. Don't nobody want to play their role. And what's very common in the Latino church is that a member leaves and starts his own church, and then from that another member leaves, and that now so a member leaves, right, and then he take 100 with him. Then a member leaves from that church, he take 50. Then the member leaves from that, and now you got 25, and then the member leaves, now you got 10 people in storefronts and you got 15 churches with 10 people in it.
On the same street.
That's what. On the same street, exactly. Very prideful. Listen, I'm gonna tell you this. I'm just keeping it 100. That is the issue. That's why you don't see big Spanish churches. The only time you see a huge population of Hispanics congregating is probably in a Catholic church, which is not ran by Latino, because they can't separate and become the pastor and do their own thing, so they all end up there. You know what I mean? They have to submit. Yeah. But other than that, if they could, everybody want to be the pastor. Every Latino's wife want to be the pastora, because she'll take over her husband's position, and then she become the pastor, and then tell the pastor. I don't even want to get into all that. That's another topic that I want to talk about one day. We're gonna bring that to the table, listen, it's troubling. You know what I mean? I've seen it.
Is there a resolution for that though? Like, how do you resolve that, man?
This is what I'm saying, and this is what I'm saying. Hey, I'm glad you brought that up. First of all, the first thing, they need to humble themselves before God.
Okay.
We need to humble. It's too much pride, man.
Right.
So when you go, even in love, and speak to these pastors or to these men of God, you can't even teach them biblically things, because they don't want to hear it, because they have this mindset of you can't even question the pastor.
Wow.
And then the pastors sometimes let that go to their head. So even if you come in love, like, yo, listen, bro, man, I just want the best. This is what God put on my heart, man. I ain't trying to judge you. I'm just saying this. Bro, they're not even trying to hear you. They're not even trying to hear you. You know what I'm saying? And so that's number one. We need to humble ourselves, because everybody ain't a pastor. You might be a great teacher and be a great asset to that church that'll help make that church and that congregation get bigger. So now the money's there, so y'all can do more outreaching, y'all can minister to the community more. But guess what? You don't want to be the teacher, you want to be the pastor, or you don't want to be the worship leader, or you don't want to be the Sunday teacher or the usher. And listen, man, we got to put this pride aside, and God calls you to be who. God will let you know what you're called to be, bro.
Right.
You know what I mean? You don't have to fight for it.
Right.
Yeah.
God will put you in the position you need to be in. As simple as that. God will put you, and my Latino people need to get that, you know, everybody ain't called to apostle or church, or everybody ain't called to lead a church.
Man,
You know,
leaders lead, managers manage, man. It's a huge
Exactly.
difference, I'm telling
Somebody
you.
done ruffled down.
Yo,
No, because I'm telling you, this is very big in the Hispanic community.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, Jamma, because you can attest to that, right, Jamma? It's very big, bro. It's always division. You always would see, oh, what happened to brother this? Oh, he started his own church.
Yeah.
He was going here for 10 years.
I only been to 2 churches. I've been to Canoina, right, with Ray Viola, and that was an all-white church, and this church right here. Yeah, and this church right here. This church is awesome.
But you know of the to family members like me. I only been to my mom and to my aunts, bro. My aunt, they've been in like 6 different little house storefront church, and not to diss them, but because again, I'll be like, oh, you going over here, Joseph? No, Ete so-and-so, he opened up his own church, brother. So now we going over. I'll be like, yo, wasn't he with my man over here? What happened to my man? Now they not pumping together. What's going on over here?
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean? And you see that all the time, and that's why you see little storefront churches. I'm telling you, you will seldom, bro. I'm telling you, y'all tell me, a church, let's not even go farther south side. Let's say Our Hope Christian Fellowship. Tell me a Spanish predominant church that y'all know that side. You ain't gonna find it.
Yeah, you don't.
Yeah, you don't see it.
You ain't gonna find it.
Nah.
You're right. You don't see it on that one.
Crazy.
Hey, that might be another topic though.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Hey, but
Spanish
that's
pride.
Tats Nation, thanks for hanging out with us, man, dealing with us, and all of our little bloopers and little mistakes today without our big brother Lou. Late to the game, yo. This dude is the most vacationist pastor
On
I've
vacation
ever
again.
met.
Yo, can he do me a favor and take one more vacation? Can he do that? Can he do one more? And he intentionally do it on Sunday.
right.
Crazy.
Yeah, but we love Brother Lou, man. Can't wait till you get back, man, and get back in the seat. But we appreciate you guys hanging out with us, man, having this conversation. Once again, we're praying that obviously the body of Christ can come together as a whole, no matter what color or race we are. But as long as we all believe in the God of Jacob, Abraham, and Isaac, I believe we believe in the same and one true God. Amen. And we should be able to come together in fellowship and put aside some of these non-essential differences non-essential differences and just worship under the commonality of our love for Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen?
Amen.
All right, so let's get ready for the street spotlight. We have our artist name is Wolf, ripping Undefined Entertainment, and song title is Can't Decide, featuring looks like Akalis or Akaliso. Now, for sure, if I pronounced that right, if I didn't, my bad. I'm not Pastor Lou. All right. But you can follow my man on Instagram or Twitter or YouTube at IamWXLF. Again, that's at IamWXLF, and that's on all Instagram, Twitter, or YouTube. Tats Nation, keep riding. Tats Crew, keep driving. We out.
Peace.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we blessed and highly favored over here. What's up, foolies? We undefined right now. Shout out Wolf. These girls be wildin'
Where's
though.
Da Vinci?
Does she want ice? Or does she want likes? She came with a price. And it's pretty hot. It's pretty hot. She can't decide. She can't decide. Oh, yeah. She can't decide. She can't decide. Oh, oh. Does she want ice? Or does she want likes? She came with a price. And it's pretty hot. It's pretty hot. She can't decide. She can't decide. Oh, yeah. She can't decide. She can't decide. Oh, oh, yeah. I be like Forrest Gump. She wanna hit me like Trump. Whoa. She wanna take my cash. Whoa. She wanna go spend his racks. Whoa. I don't even know about her. Whoa. I don't even know about her. Whoa. Wolf said run from her. So I'm like run for us. Run for us. She wanna go for it. Go for it. I'm like 4th in inches. She wanna go get extensions. I wanna go get these ditches. She wanna, yo, whoa. She tryna go take my cash, whoa. She tryna go to my past, whoa. She tryna make me go back, whoa. Ayy, Billie Jean still not my lover. She tryna get me back in that Hummer, oh, whoa. I want that straight and arrow, she wanna hit me with an arrow, ayy. She ain't no Cupid. Does she want ice? Or does she want likes? She came with a price. And it's pretty hot, it's pretty hot. She can't decide, she can't decide, oh, yeah. She can't decide, she can't decide, oh, oh. Does she want ice? Or does she want likes? She came with a price. And it's pretty hot, it's pretty hot. She can't decide, she can't decide, oh, yeah. She can't decide, she can't decide, oh, oh, yeah.
When I pull up, I hop out like que lo que. No me hables de cosas que yo no sé. I ignore her and tell her no speak English. She can see all the ice dripping from my neck. Tengo sazón como adobo. Shawty, she calling me lobo. Don't do that, you'll get me in trouble. She reaching and I see the struggle. Ooh, she call me lobo. I've been ballin', got a triple-double. She just want me cause I never fumble. But she love God, she a misfit. She just act like she different. I wanna go and have a picnic, but she just steady in my business. Baby, don't hide it, just tell me. I seen you last week in that telly. Shawty, she all on my DMs. I just scroll down, I don't see them. She posting up for a flick. She do it all for a click. I told her I think that you sick. Watch how you shoot when you miss. Watch how you shoot when you miss.
Does she want ice? Or does she want likes? She came with a price. And it's pretty hot, it's pretty hot. She can't decide, she can't decide, oh, yeah. She can't decide, she can't decide, oh, oh. Does she want ice? Or does she want likes? She came with a price. And it's pretty hot, it's pretty hot. She can't decide, she can't decide, oh.